Hello and welcome to another episode of the Expanse Abridged Podcast series. Today we've got chapter 21, which is a Holden chapter, and of course, as always, so far, it's been the first book of the series, Leviathan Wakes. So last we saw Holden, he'd met Big Boy Fred, obviously our favourite character, and he'd kind of been settling into Psycho Station. They got a tour, they got some nice apartments, some new digs, and there was a bit of tension between why Fred is helping them. And the idea is Fred's helping them because he thinks the war's going to be pretty bad for the belt, because it'll just be so many people would die because they're against really good Martians. And he thinks if he can force a trial, he can use Holden and his crew as really good evidence, because they're the only people that have seen the destruction of both the Donager, which was the big Martian battleship, and the Canterbury, which was the water hauler they were working on. So they kind of guess of his, basically. And the crew was settling in. And Naomi was doing karaoke while Holden was being moody, and with his PTSD he went to the ship and chilled out for a bit instead. So we join them again as they've been chilling out for a bit, and we get a nice description of how small spaceships are. So Holden was musing that only on the Rocinante there's only 2 rooms where he could put his arms out without touching walls, and they were the galley where they all ate and prepared food and stuff, and the cargo bay. And he's saying that even the most hardened belt prospectors could recognise the tension of being shipbound. It was an ancient stress response for a trapped animal, the subconscious knowledge that there was literally nowhere to go that you couldn't see from where you were already standing. Getting off the ship at port was a sudden and sometimes giddying release of tension. And he remembers his time in the Navy getting off, and it's more than once he'd wandered into a brothel and left only when they threw him out with an emptied account, a sore groin, and a prostate as dry as Sahara Desert. So when Amos staggered into his room after 3 days on station, Holden knew exactly what the big mechanic felt like. So basically, our boys, they fuck. They're fucking legends. They're hung like donkeys, and they fuck a lot, especially after a trip, and they're very painful after that. And Amos has gone AWOL for a while, and we learned last time he found the most expensive hooker he could, and it was told her Fred was paying as well, because obviously Fred's a legend, and yeah, so now he's all fucked out. His prostate is as dry as Sahara, which is a good quote. And the crew get the dinner together. They get some nice sushi and some salmon. So they do eat a lot of fish, because obviously you can't really grow animals, but I think fish don't really mind 0G, because they're just dicking about in water. So in the books you do get a lot of fish, and sushi is quite a common one people eat. They always say the seaweed's fake, but I don't know, the fish always seems like maybe it's just more mushrooms as we've had, or tofu as we've had throughout. Then they all sit down afterwards and chilling out, and Holden gets irritated that they're chilling out. And he says, has everyone had enough of sucking on Fred's teat yet? I know I have, which I've never heard before, actually. And everyone's saying, no, they're just getting started, it's quite fun, all this. And he's like, yeah, look, I also quite enjoy chilling out, but we were full of righteous anger and dreams of vengeance when we got here, and a couple of blowjobs and hangovers later. It's like nothing ever happened. The ship is still out there somewhere, and the people that ordered it to shoot us too. And Holden basically wants to go get something done. He doesn't like chilling out. They're all full of anger to go sort out the universe's problems and get the bad guys. And as he said, like last time, he slept to dreams of vengeance and fantasies of them, and he basically wants to go get something done. And it's making him nuts. It's only been 3 days. And everyone's like, what, have you changed your mind on Fred? What, have you changed your view? And he's like, no, I like this, but this trial could take years, the war needs to go through, and all the things need to happen. We could be stuck here for years while anything happens. And these apartments can easily be a prison, as much as they could be like a nice holiday. Fred controls the purse strings, he owns us. And he's kind of debating, saying, we've got only really Naomi at this point is kind of like, I'm going down to do something else, while Alex and Amos are like, no, whores and darts is quite fun for the time being. And Holden's like, look, we've got a good ship, we've got a sneaky ship, because you can turn off the transponders and it's full of guns. They could go be like defence ships to avoid pirates, because obviously there's a war going on, so there's more piracy, and they could act as like a defence. And he says, how long can you guys be station rats? And Amos and Alex say a week's about right, and then I'd like to go earn my own money, because they can basically be like a mercenary group, or like a sword for hire, almost. And Holden's happy with that, and he's saying, having a plan makes a difference. Downtime's easier to enjoy when I know it'll end. Which I quite like as a line. I think that's quite true for a lot of people. Then Alex and Amos head out to go, they've only got a week left, they need to go do some whoring and some darts. And Naomi stays behind. They make some coffee together, which Holden makes, because he loves his coffee, because he's a good boy. And as again there, they talk about Kelly's body, who was the Marine that got them onto the Rocinante, and he had that little cube, it was probably a few chapters ago now, which is kind of a data cube, and they reckon that's got a load of Martian secret codes on it. for like missiles or ship designs or secret weapons and things like that. And Naomi can't get into it, and she's like, we should give it to Fred because one is ex-UN, because he was a butcher of Anderson Station, so he may have some ideas, and also they've probably got bigger brains and bigger computers in the OPA more broadly that could use it. And Naomi opens up a bit and says, I've been a shitty second captain so far, and she apologises for being all stressed out, probably at the bar, the last time we saw them when she yelled at him, and she's like, no, I think you're doing well. You keep everyone in orbit around you, and you keep us focused on the problems we can solve instead of feeling sorry for ourselves. And Holden feels a glow of pride. And he's quite happy with it. And Naomi goes on and says, you're not just the captain because McDowell's dead, you're our captain, as far as I'm concerned. And Holden starts blushing, which is very cute. And I think Naomi blushes. No, it says Naomi blushes as well. They both blush. It's very cute vibes. And then we cut. We go to the second part of the chapter, and we're in Fred's office. Big man Fred Johnson. And it says, the office was like its occupant, big, intimidating, and overflowing of things that need to be done. And then immediately followed by that is the room was easily 2.5 square meters, which I think must be the authors getting this very, very wrong, because 2.5 square meters is fucking tiny. Like, for reference, I think my desk is over a meter squared, like 1.2, like 1, something like that, and it's not a particularly large desk. So his office is, like, barely bigger than 2 dining room tables. I think my bedroom, for example, now in London, although it's relatively large, is like 25 square meters. So this is the most powerful guy in the OPA, one of the most powerful people, and his office is only 2.5 square meters. But he has got a wooden desk, which must be over 100 years old. And the fact that we said earlier on, like, there wouldn't be, I think it was last chapter, they had faux wood flooring because no one could afford actual wood. They know this bloke's pimping if he's got a wooden desk, but he's still got an office that is only 2.5 square meters. And Holden is sat on a chair slightly lower than Fred's, because we love some chair chat, as we've had a few times in this book. But also, Fred is probably displaying a bit of power trick by making Holden sit a little bit lower, which is something I think a partner does at my office. All the chairs you sit on if you go in his room are very low compared to the throne he sits on. I know he spends the first 10 minutes on the phone talking about some project, and the Mormons are complaining about the atmospheric system on their ship, because obviously if they're going for 100 plus years, it has to be perfect, can't be a little bit wrong. And he's complaining about shipping delays, because of the war, people aren't delivering on time, and he's like, the delays are going to become cancellations, and they may not be able to get the ship done on time, which is the worry. And he's talking about how there's a lot of belter ships are starting to throw homemade torpedoes at Martian warships and getting killed in the process, but every so often one hits, and that kills a few Martians, which increases the tempo of the war. And then Fred turns to Holden and says, I need to ask you a favour. Holden, you can always ask, you've paid for that much. And he wants to borrow their ship. And he needs a ship that is quick and quiet, get past a picket line if it needs to, and they need to go pick up a dude. And in response, Holden does not trust him. He's like, you talk a good game about peace, you have a nice station filled with nice people, and I have every reason to trust you, but the first time you actually ask me for anything is for a secret mission, and it's to borrow my own ship. He's like, I'll help you out, but I need full access. And like, I want no secrets, I want all of to be involved. And as he's saying this, Fred's knuckles go white, and Holden wonders if he's gone too far. Particularly, and Holden's kind of hammering home the point that his ship is the only one nearby with guns, which is like the big point. He's like, mine is unique, like, why would you want mine? You have loads of ships. And he kind of makes a cheap joke, but no matter how scared I am, I'm not backing down on this. And the laughter doesn't appear, and Fred immediately replies, I bet every captain you ever flew under thought you were a gigantic pain in the ass. And he explains that they need to go find a guy who doesn't actually exist. He's on Eros, which is another space station, so an asteroid. And he says, we need to go find this guy. He doesn't exist, but he's checked in. This name is checked into a hotel, and he's a fake person. So the only reason he would ever do that is that someone needs help and is in a position where they can't ask for it. And what's most important is this guy. It's called Lionel Polanski, which is a reference to something, but I don't know what it is. I need to Google that. Is the owner of the Scopuli, which obviously was the ship that Judy Mao was on, and the one that the Canterbury went to go find at the very start of the book. So he's the owner of that. And he shouldn't exist, he's a fake man, but somehow he's checked into a hotel, which means somebody who knows about his operation is asking for help in a very, very stealthy way. So it's exciting. And Holden's like, okay, cool, I'm down for this, that sounds fun. We can leave in an hour, and I won't loan you my ship, but I'll definitely rent it out. And Fred's like, no, you're too valuable, you can do all your... But then Holden counters, we can do all our video depositions, all our testifying beforehand, which is a bit of like playing your hand, because then he won't need you afterwards. And Fred isn't convinced, but then he offers the cube. He loves the cube. load of Saudi Arabians, they're building some big cubes in the desert, and Holden loves a cube as well. And he offered the data cube. He says, you need a ship like the Rossi, I've got one. You need a crew for it, I've got that too. And you're as hungry to know what's on the cube as I am. Because he just loves his cubes. He sits there in the Rocinante, rotating cubes in his head. And the only other option Holden explains is to commandeer my ship and throw us in the brig, and that's just too risky. And the final thing they discuss in this chapter is basically it's a gunship, and it looks like a gunship because it is one, so how are they going to do to hide it? And Holden nicks a fountain pen, or a decorative pen, because I can't imagine a fountain pen. None of those gravity, I guess. Either way, he scratches on a napkin, a drawing of the Rocinante, and sticks a load of blobs on the outside and says, we've said we're a gas freighter, let's make it look like one, and if we make it look shit, it looks more convincing, and we can still hide all the guns and stuff underneath, so we give a pirate a nasty surprise, which Fred laughs at him, and the laughing began in his belly, which, that's when it's good vibes. That's when it's good vibes. And they kind of bang it all out, and Holden rings up Naomi and says, pack up the kids, we're going to Eros, which is very exciting times. So this is set slightly after the Miller chapter we just read through. That was chapter 20. Because he knew it was going to Eros. And he was the one as well that knew it should be a gas freighter, because that's what they have on their flight plans. So it's nice linking all together with that. The Holden is now going to, shit, I need to pretend to be a gas freighter. Never mind, just have the fake kind of instruments. So yeah, it was a good chapter that. I enjoyed that. I've probably said so far, I enjoy the Holden ones, particularly so far, although I think Miller is a very fun character throughout. But I've enjoyed that. You get kind of a good interaction with the boys when they're chilling out, the post-crew antics. We get plenty of discussions of chairs, which we love. Brothels, not as many mushrooms this time, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, a good one as well. And you kind of get that nice, that they're taking time to chill out, you know a bit more about the characters and relationships, particularly Naomi kind of apologising and going, I like you as a captain, you're good, we are a crew now. And then immediately back into the action on their way to Eros. So yeah, good chapter, and I hope you have a lovely week.